Okay, good morning everybody. My name's John Gray and I'd like to welcome you all to the UCL Institute of Education for the final event in the ESRC funded seminar series Queering ESOL towards cultural politics of LGBT issues in the ESOL Classroom. I'd like to apologise to any of you who received an email from me about 2 weeks ago inviting you to the final event in the Queening ESOL seminar series. That was a typo or some kind of Freudian slip on my part, obviously. It's actually the Queering ESOL seminar series. Okay. Now I know some of you have been to seminars here before in the seminar series, but I also know that some of you are new to the seminar series. So I'll just say a little bit about where it came from and where we've kind of got to so far. And it's been really an amazing journey over the last 2 years. And for me, it started with a one-day event, an TECLA event called Breaking the Ice, which took place in October 2012 at the British Council. The TECLA, for those of you who don't know, is the National Association for Teaching English and Other Community Languages to Adults. And that was organised by Laila El-Matoui, who some of you know and will be speaking here tomorrow. And she asked me if I'd contribute to that day, because in my own work I'd been looking at textbooks for the teaching of English as an international language, and very much with a focus on the kind of representational practices that we find in these artefacts. And I was interested in things like the representations of gender, representations of sexuality, social class, race, etc. And also the kinds of systematic erasure that we often find in these materials, particularly in those which have been produced in the UK for global consumption. Now, the TECLA event was extremely well attended, but it was obvious that a one-day event wasn't going to sort the whole thing out. And many of us felt that light needed to be shed on a lot of issues that were being raised that day. Issues not only related to materials or to pedagogy, but also to religion, homophobia, the importance of institutional support for LGBT students and teachers, etc. So my dear colleagues and friends, Mel Cook and Mike Bainham and I got together and we applied for funding for a seminar series, which we wanted to be as exploratory as it could be, and which we hoped would then be of use to the ESOL sector. And the ESRC fortunately liked our proposal and awarded us a small grant, which I think we've actually, looking back on it, I think we've spent the money extremely well on speakers like many of whom are here today. Now, the immediate context for that TECLA event and the Queering ESOL seminar series, it comes out of really the climate that was created in this country by the 2010 Equality Act. And that act identifies a variety of settings, one of which is an educational setting, in which 9 protected characteristics identified in the act have to be taken into consideration. And from our point of view, there are three of those protected characteristics which are particularly relevant, namely sexual orientation, being in a civil partnership. This was, of course, before the Marriage Act of 2013, and gender reassignment. Now, Ofsted, which is the government inspectorate for education, responded to the 2010 Equality Act by updating its handbook for inspection of further education and skills in 2012, and identified explicitly in that handbook LGBT learners as, quote, a group whose needs, dispositions, aptitudes or circumstances may mean that they require particularly perceptive and expert teaching and in some cases additional support. And many of the people that we met at that one-day event and a TECLA event were clearly baffled by what that might mean. How would you go about satisfying an Ofsted inspection? So it was out of that sort of, the questions that arose out of that the seminar series came about. So then Mike and Mel and myself got together and we sort of decided that there were a number of themes that we felt were really important that we wanted to address and explore in as broad and as interdisciplinary a way as we possibly could. So we decided on the law, migration, the classroom, religion and representation. Clearly we could have chosen other things as well, but those were the ones that we decided at least to begin with. So in the first seminar in November 2013, we began by examining the evolving legal frameworks regulating the lives of those identifying as LGBT and the resulting implications for those working in a number of educational settings. And we looked at how the law had changed in this country from the 1967 Sexual Offences Act, which decriminalised homosexual acts for people over 21 in private, to the 2013 Marriage Act, which legalised same-sex marriage. Individual speakers looked at how schools dealt with homophobic bullying, how the experiences of LGBT students in the further education sector, what those experiences were, and the ways in which Ofsted had gone about implementing the 2010 Equality Act in the school sector, and what that might mean for FE and for ESOL. Then in our second seminar, we looked at migration, and that seminar really sought to explore the trajectories of those migrants who seek asylum on the basis of their status as LGBT, many of whom, of course, could then end up in ESOL classrooms. And a leading campaign barrister took us through the process of asylum seeking for those identifying as LGBT in this country, while other speakers reported on ethnographic research in a variety of global settings, such as LGBT migrants from Russia to Germany and from Mexico to the United States. Interestingly, issues of social class were shown to be very important in these talks. And one speaker in particular showing how those claimants with transportable reserves of what might be called cultural capital and class habitus from their country of origin were often better placed to present and to have their stories believed when they were seeking asylum. The third seminar then focused on the classroom and looked at issues surrounding LGBT invisibility, the closet and disclosure. And speakers in this seminar looked at language teaching materials, the attitudes of ESOL teachers and students to LGBT issues in the classroom, and the way in which classrooms might disrupt or challenge exclusionary and heteronormative discourses. The seminar also included a dramatised reading of the play Queer as a Second Language, written by Cynthia Nelson, which is based on ethnographic interviews carried out with ESOL students and their teachers. And there's been a lot of ethnographic work actually in the seminar series. In fact, you'll see around the room some posters which Tung has brought with him from Hong Kong, which are the result of an ethnographic study there of people working in the university sector, bringing in objects that were significant to them in terms of their sense of self as LGBT working in the higher education sector there. So you can have a look at those, and I'm sure Tung will explain them more when he gives his talk. Then in the fourth seminar, we addressed religion, which was something Mel and Mike and I felt really had to be tackled, and the ways in which the rights of faith groups interact with LGBT rights in educational settings. And interestingly, many of the speakers in this seminar focused on the way in which LGBT Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs and Christians in a variety of global settings attempt to reconcile their various identities. And I think this seminar went a long way really in shedding a lot of light on the complexities of religion and sexual identity. In the fifth seminar, we looked at LGBTI representation across a range of text types, and we explored the issues again for ESOL pedagogy. Speakers here focused on heteronorms in the media, in children's fiction and language teaching materials, and the ways in which the representation of the intersex body could be seen as emblematic of the way in which all of those who fall outside the norm, whether in terms of gender or sexuality or anatomy, are often subject to very brutal processes of normalization and regulation. So it's been an amazingly rich kind of seminar series so far, and I know that the next 2 days are also going to contribute to that, and a lot of the issues that I've mentioned will be dealt with again.